want to thank you for watching our study in the book of Philippians. You know, one of the things that I see when I study the book of Philippians, actually any of Paul's writings, is how incredible this man is. The Apostle Paul. He is really something else. But he's not something else because of his own works. He is something else by the grace of God. Let me just say this to you. The reason why Paul could write this is because of his relationship with Jesus. The reason why he could have unconditional joy even when he's sitting in prison is because of his relationship with Christ. Now, Philippians, the first chapter, verse number 1. Now I want you to know, brethren, that my circumstances have turned out for the greater progress of the gospel. What's Paul's circumstances? He's in prison. He's sitting in a prison now. It's probably a lot like a house arrest, but he's sitting and he's not allowed outside of the house. He's got a guard that's around him all the time. Now they're allowing people to come in and to talk with him. They're allowing people to come in and take his letters and distribute his letters around to whatever city they needed to go to. But he is under arrest. And he is also under this thing that someday they're going to pass sentence. You see, the Apostle Paul was under house arrest, but he had not been sentenced at this time. It wasn't until what we call his second imprisonment in Rome that the Apostle Paul knew that he was going to die. And he was placed in a pit, in a hole in the ground that was absolutely terrible living conditions. But right now, when he writes here to the Philippians, he's in prison. He's not free. He's a prisoner. But notice what he says. He says that my circumstances, now he's been beaten, he's been mocked, he's been put in prison, he's been shipwrecked, all kinds of things have already happened because of the Apostle Paul's ministry. But notice what he says, that in my circumstances, my circumstances have turned out for the greater progress of the gospel. What's Paul saying? He's saying, you know what? All these things, all these bad things that have happened to me, you know what's happened? He said, the gospel is progressing. It's moving forward. A greater progress of the gospel. You know, the Apostle Paul writes, I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God unto salvation. The Apostle Paul didn't quit when things got bad. He kept going. He kept ministering. He kept preaching the gospel. Do you know that from this prison cell, the Apostle Paul wrote 4 letters, 4 epistles that have blessed us, encouraged us, and helped us in our understanding of salvation? The epistles of the Philippians, what we're reading and studying now, the epistle to the Colossians, the letter to the Ephesians, and the letter for Philemon or to Philemon. Wow. Where did he write them from? He wrote them from prison. But notice what he says next. So that my imprisonment in the cause of Christ has become well known throughout the whole Praetorian Guard and to everyone else. You know what? The Apostle Paul didn't stop preaching just because he lost an audience. He didn't stop proclaiming the gospel. You know, I know of some people that say, well, you know what, if you can't provide a crowd for me, then I'm not going to come and preach. You know what, the Apostle Paul is in this house, and one of the persons in the house is the Praetorian Guard. You say, well, what's a Praetorian Guard? A Praetorian Guard was not just your every run-of-the-mill guard. It was a palace guard. It was someone who was in a very high position or a very high level as a guard. And you know what was happening? These guards were sitting there guarding the Apostle Paul, and you know what Paul was doing? He was giving them the gospel. They knew he was there because of Christ. Paul was giving them the gospel. He says that they become well known through the whole Praetorian Guard. In other words, all of these guards that have come, they know why I'm here. And then he goes on and says, to everyone else. Now, what was Paul doing? He was continuing to preach the gospel. He was continuing to speak the word and the gospel of God to these people. He continued his ministry. He didn't quit because he was in prison. Now, verse number 14. And that most of the brethren, trusting in the Lord because of my imprisonment, have far more courage to speak the word of God without fear. What's Paul saying? He's saying, and that most of the brethren, what's happened? The other brethren that are around him in Rome, what are they doing? What are they seeing? They're seeing Paul not quitting. They're seeing Paul still rejoicing in his imprisonment. And you know what's happened? Because of that, they are trusting in the Lord. Paul says they are trusting in the Lord because of my imprisonment. Now, maybe that boggles your mind a bit. But you know what? When you see a person that continues to preach the gospel even though they're in persecution, it changes your life. It's changed my life. I've been around people that have continued to preach the gospel no matter what happens to them. Death threats, imprisonments, all kinds of things. And it produces trust in the Lord. And then he goes on, he says, have far more courage. Whatever they were doing, this trust in the Lord has encouraged them. It's given them courage. Courage to do what? To speak the word of God without fear. You know what? Paul is seeing his ministry expanding. Even though his audience is small, he's seeing the believers going out and preaching the gospel. Wow, what a beautiful, beautiful encouragement it is to us today. My time's up for today. Join us again tomorrow as we continue our study in the book of Philippians. Thank you for watching.